Good day and welcome to Predators Proclivity, the podcast where we look at data from the season for the NHL Nashville Predators and make comments upon it. I am your host, Preston Proctor, and this is the first episode of our second season. Yes, there is a second season. I guess we're going to continue doing this. It was I enjoyed it last year. A little premature ending with the loss to Calgary, but hey, you can't win them all. And so far, the Preds have proved that this season. But not winning them all and not winning any are big differences there. But anyway, here in the first episode, I am going to at first start talking a little bit about the roster changes for the Preds. We talked about this over the summer. The Preds made some really exciting additions to the team, and looking forward to seeing them play here with the Predators. And so we'll talk a little bit about the roster changes. At this point in the season, the Preds have played a game at home and away, which is kind of nice from a starting statistical analysis, because at least it gives me a little bit of something on this year to discuss. I didn't plan this. This season kind of caught me off guard. I was out of town for the last week and thought about trying to do a podcast for the first couple of games, and I thought, I'm just not going to be able to pull that off to the level and attention to detail that you guys all expect from me. Let's just put it that way. So we've got a home game and an away game, and so I'll talk about those, and then I'll go and I'll talk about tonight's game. So let's get into it. Welcome again to Predators Proclivity. Thanks for listening. So the roster changes. So there are a couple of forwards. And I am going to apologize. I had it on my list to practice some of the last names. I am totally going to butcher a couple. I might get it right. I have no idea. I've tried saying the names. I meant to look them up, and here I am doing the podcast, and I totally blew that one. Hey, it's early in the season. This is just the beginning of things that I'm going to forget to do before the podcast. So that's number one. The first one. I guess the question is, will I have more episodes than things I forgot to do? That's kind of that might be the thing to watch out for. So in general, I think this podcast is going to be a little bit longer because I've got more things to talk about, but then I have less to say about tonight's game because we don't really have a lot of data from this season. So the things I cover, I'll cover as we go along. Anyhow, so roster changes. No longer with the team, Igor Afanasyev traded to San Jose for Ozzy Weissblatt, who is with the AHL Milwaukee Admirals. I think I said that right. So we traded him away. He didn't play a lot last year, but he did play. I think he was with the team for 2 years, did play in a number of games. We also no longer have Cody Glass. That was traded to Pittsburgh for Jordan Frasca and a third round 2025 and sixth round 2026 pick. Jordan, you will see him down with the AHL Milwaukee Admirals as well. And then Kiefer Sherwood was an unrestricted free agent and got picked up by Vancouver. As did later on Kevin Lankinen, the goalie, the backup goaltender last year. So 2 unrestricted free agents went to Vancouver. I think that's the only 2. Kiefer Sherwood, forward. So that's the forwards that we no longer will see out there, at least playing for the Predators. Afanasyev, who is playing for San Jose, so we will potentially see him when we play the Sharks. And then we definitely will see Glass when we play Pittsburgh. And Sherwood when we see Vancouver. But who do we have new? So new to the team is Jonathan Marchessault and Steven Stamkos. Both were unrestricted free agents. Marchessault was with Vegas and Stamkos with Tampa Bay. Very excited to see them play. Marchessault to date has 2 assists, no goals, and Stamkos yet has a point. Defensemen, we will no longer see. Tyson Barrie was signed by Calgary as an unrestricted free agent. I'm sad to see that myself because as a new developing Predators fan, you try to pick a favorite player. And Glass, I think, was one of my favorite players, and of course he's gone. And then I was trying to glom myself around Barrie because somehow or another I wound up winning a basket of stuff procured by him. And so I'm like, okay, hey, it's a good reason to start. And now neither Glass nor Barrie are with the team. I think it would be a little unfair to just start saying that Stamkos was going to be my favorite player because he just started with the Preds. I think that's kind of that would be kind of simplistic, but it's hard not to be a fan of Forsberg, but but that's a little too on the nose as well. So I don't know. It's so I don't technically have a favorite player yet, and there you go. So the 2 that I was trying to get my head around are no longer with the team. So neither one of those will be my favorite Preds player. And then, okay, so that was a long-winded. Tyson Barrie is no longer with the team, and neither is Ryan McDonough, and that was a trade to Tampa Bay, as well as a 4th-round pick in 2024 to get a 7th-round 2024 and a 2nd-round 2025 pick. So we traded McDonough and a pick last year, or 2024, for a pick last year and one next year. And so the new defenseman is Brady Skjei. I might have gotten that right. I doubt it. But anyway, Brady. We have a new defenseman. Brady is our new defenseman. Brady. That's easy to say. He was signed as an unrestricted free agent from Carolina. Looking at his stats, not so much of a goal scorer, although he was, I think, in the top 10 for Carolina, but one of the leaders in assists and points. So wouldn't necessarily look for a lot of goals from him, but to be involved in a lot of plays. So more of an offensive defenseman. Offensive in a way that you prefer them to be. And goalies, Yaroslav Askarov was he was one of the developing goalies, played for the Admirals. Was when I guess when the Predators decided not to re-sign Lankinen, the scuttlebutt was that Askarov was going to be competing with I forget who, because we traded him away too. We got him in a trade and we traded him in a trade. You know how that goes. But anyway, he was supposed to be competing for the starting job, or for the backup role, actually, and we have traded him to San Jose along with Nolan Burke and a 3rd round next year, 2025, for 2 players, David Edstrom and Magnus Krona, and a 1st round 2025 pick. Both of those, I think, will be seen in Milwaukee. Maybe called up here and there, but I think most of the time in Milwaukee. And then, of course, Kevin Lankinen was not re-signed, but he was signed by Vancouver, I mentioned earlier, as an unrestricted free agent. Hope he does well out there. I always liked watching him play. What we have now, the new goalie to the team is Scott Wedgwood. He was signed as an unrestricted free agent from Dallas. He got to play in the Dallas opener because Saros was injured. So that was kind of an interesting turnaround there. We got him as an unrestricted agent, and then his first game, regular season game, he got to play against his old team. That had to be fun. And as we'll discuss later, it was a lot of fun for his old teammates. Not so much fun for the goaltender. So wrapping this up. So we have the new centers are Jankowski, Novak. Oh, so not new centers, but the centers we've got this year starting are Jankowski, Novak, Nyquist, O'Reilly, Parsonen, Sissons, Stamkos, and Tomasino. Those are all centers. We have two right wings, Marchessault and McCarron, and two left wings, Forsberg and Smith. That is the centers, right wings, and left wings. So that's who we've got to play this season. Moving on to our opening games. I guess the one thing I should have mentioned, and I can quickly pull this up, on defense. Well, they've got a lot of people listed on defense, but that's not that's not how that works. But anyhow, the opening game. So we had a home opener Thursday, October 10th. It was a 4-3 loss to Dallas. And this kind of is picking up where we left off last year. Last year, we were 2-2 against Dallas, losing both at home, 2-3 in December and 9-2 in February. That February loss was the one that kicked off the winning streak when they weren't allowed to go to the U2 concert. And there was a lot of consternation, I guess would be the way to put it, about the lack of focus. So 2-2 against Dallas last year, losing both at home. We played Dallas at home this year, and we lost. So that's kind of reminiscent of last year. Very similar. We'll get to that in the road opener, but there you go. Dallas got the first goal of the game at 2:05 in the second, and then they followed up with another goal 19 seconds later. And then the next shot on goal was after Forsberg scored on the power play, but that one found the net at 8:03, which made 3 goals on 3 shots. They missed scoring on their next shot, but then made it 4 goals on 5 shots at 18:15. Nashville then got 2 goals in the third. So they did not get the first goal. They gave up 4 goals in the second period at home. So Nashville continued with their less than stellar play at home in the second period. Those of you that have listened for more than half a second know the reason why I started doing this podcast is because I thought that the Preds played poorly at home in the second period, and I started doing data analysis to prove whether I was right or wrong, and boy, was I right. Hopefully they can right the ship on that. As my father-in-law pointed out, talking to him about how Dallas, how the Preds play poorly in the second period, and that some teams do play well. And he said, well, obviously Dallas has got it figured out. Yeah. Thanks. But yes, some teams play well in the second period. And the Preds play better on the second period on the road. They are definitely worse in the second period at home than on the road. The game at Nashville against Dallas was interesting because the first goal was scored in the second period. And last year, that only happened 4 times. So that's somewhat rare for the first goal to happen in the second period. But sure enough, that's what happened. And so it happened 4 times last year. 3 times the Preds got it and won the game. And the one time they didn't get it was in a loss to Florida. So the first goal was in the second period. The other team got it. And 100% of the time, in that circumstance last year, the Preds lost. So, hey, same so far this year. All right. This game, from a statistics standpoint, was different from the overall last year because in this particular circumstance, the winning goal was scored in the second period. Winning goal being defined as the goal when is the goal scored that is the one that exceeds the losing team's goal total. The Preds wound up scoring 3 goals, so the 4th goal is the winning goal, and that was also scored in the second period. And last year, only 4 of the losses at home had the winning goal scored in the second period, which wound up being 22%. The Preds, on the other hand, when the Preds score the winning goal, 39% of the time it was in the second. So more likely if the winning goal is going to, last year anyway, so, this is starting a little bit of a different trend, but, one game is not really statistically significant. So, but it was notable that it's different. 9 times last year in their home wins, they scored the winning goal in the second period, 39%. That's pretty significant, but did not happen against Dallas. In the game, they were 1-1-1, tying the first, losing the second, and winning the third. Not really what you're looking for. When losing only 1 period last year at home, they were 5-6. 5-6, so that's a losing record. A 6-8 when only winning 1 period. And then when tying 1 period, 12-11. So, even money on that one. But the 1-1-1, not really a winning strategy for last year. This year could be different. I guess we'll see. Time will tell. Last year they were 10-5-0 when tying the first period, which is not so bad. 2-11-1 when losing the second. 16-1-1 when winning the third. So I guess just to kind of go back and clarify what I'm talking about is we're talking about winning, losing, and tying the period. The number of goals scored in that period for each team, taking that period in and of itself. So in the first period, neither team scored, so that was a tie. And in the second period, Dallas scored 4 to Nashville's 1, so they won that period. The third period, Nashville scored 2 goals and Dallas scored 0, so they won the third period. So just those of you might be a little confused at what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the win, losing, tying periods. That's what I mean. So 16-1-1 when winning the third. So the individual statistics don't look too bad from that standpoint, but going back and looking at last year, if they lose the second and win the third, they were 1-2 last year, 1-1 in the regular season, and 1 loss to the Canucks in the playoffs. On the road, they were 3-1. So losing the second period, winning the third on the road, they were 3-1. I think that was all regular season games. As I said earlier, in a nice twist for Dallas, Nashville had to play their backup goaltender with Saros injured. Wedgwood played for Dallas last year, came to Nashville as an unrestricted free agent. With the Stars last year, he was 16-7 in 32 games with 28 starts. That's not bad. That's pretty good, filled in as a backup. He had a 2.85 goals against average and a .899 save percentage, which is respectable. And in the game against Dallas, he had an .800 save percentage with 4 goals. So an auspicious start for Wedgwood. In the road opener, Saturday, October 12th. Yep, 3-0 loss to Detroit. As I wrote down, same song, different band. Last year, the Predators were 1-1 against Detroit. They won at home and lost in Detroit last year, just like they did Saturday. They lost in Detroit. So far, the Preds have played 2 games, and they've pretty much held serve with how they played last year, losing in Detroit to Detroit. I don't know who else you could lose to in Detroit. I don't think anybody else plays there in the NHL. But I guess they lost to the Red Wings in Detroit. There you go. And losing to Dallas in Nashville. So kind of so far too similar to last year. I guess the one difference, last year the loss was in overtime. Against Dallas or Detroit on Saturday, Saros was back in net, but just wasn't enough. They scored, there you go, their first goal in the second period. It was the only goal scored in the second period, and then they scored 2 in the third, which include an empty netter. So interesting, not that many games last year were the first goal was in the second period, and here we are, the first 2 games of the year. I guess from that standpoint, beating a different drum. But for the Predators, the drum is out of tune. Should check with my nephew and see what a good analogy is for drumming. But yeah, so 3-0 Detroit. We tied the first period and lost the second and third. So, again, so on the road last year, the Preds were 1-2, and the opponent scored the first goal in the second period. I think I said this a number of times last year. When you lose 2 periods, you're pretty much done. Last year, they were 0-12 when losing 2 periods on the road. And when they win 2 periods, they win the game. I mean, that one thing that seems to be a truism, at least for the Preds, and I haven't done the analysis for anybody else, and I really don't want to. Not on my own dime, anyway. But losing or winning 2 periods. So if the Preds win the first and second period, game over. They lose the first and second period. Both those cases, you don't have to watch the third period. Maybe you want to in one, but not the other. So they're 0-12 last year when losing 2 periods on the road, 6-9 when tying 1 period. And, surprising. 0-9 when not winning any period. Another truism is if you don't win any period, you don't win the game. It just happened that 9 times last year on the road they did not win any period. So I guess the O is not surprising. Overall last year for the Preds, when a team wins 2 periods, they win the game. The team getting the first goal, which was another thing that I poo-pooed this, and I hated it whenever the Preds announcers would bring it up. about how important the first goal was. Now, as I have said, I never played hockey. I have been a scorekeeper. I've watched a lot of hockey. I took some hockey skating lessons. I cannot turn or stop, so thank goodness there are boards there to run into. So I have played a lot of sports, and I have played soccer, but so the mentality in hockey on the first goal, being in the locker room, and what that means to a team, is not something that I can speak to. I'm just being honest about that. I mean, I can appreciate the fact that in most of hockey's history, which I think has kind of turned the page a little bit the last couple of years, not been a very high-scoring game. 1-2 goals. I think I saw the other night where the Kings lost to Calgary 7-8. You don't typically see a lot of scoring. So one goal is incredibly meaningful. When the Kings in 2012 won the Stanley Cup, they won a lot of one-goal games, the 1-0, 2-1. Jonathan Quick. Yes, the first mention for Jonathan Quick here at episode 1, and we have a Jonathan Quick mentioning. Yes, Jonathan Quick stood on his head, as they say. Played amazingly in front of or behind the Kings, and kept them in ball games, kept them in the hockey game, and played outstanding. Should have won the Vezina. Yes. Of course, if we get a Jonathan Quick reference early in the season, we have to get the Vezina Trophy reference as well. So there you go. All of you playing some sort of Preston Proctor bingo probably have a couple of shots to take. I think I'm mixing metaphors, but it's probably a good idea anyway. So I wasn't real high on the whole first goal meaningful thing. But in the Preds season last year, the team that got the first goal was 55-22-5 in the regular season and 4-2 in the playoffs. The Preds had a great record when they got the first goal, and we're actually pretty good at making up for not having gotten it. But 55-22-5, you can't ignore that. But that was last season. That's not this season. But so far it's 0-2. Anyhow, on the road, tying the first and losing the second period, the Preds were 1-4 last year. So none of that was looking good for the Preds in either game. Tying the first, not necessarily a problem. As I said, on the road, they had a pretty decent record. At home, I guess they had a pretty decent record, and so tying the first period, not scoring the first period, not necessarily an arbiter of or an omen of things to come. But the losing the second period, not getting the first goal, those were not what you would want to see. But hey, it's early in the season. And so, speaking of the season, hey, nice segue. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Tonight's opponent is the Seattle Kraken. The Predators are at home here in Nashville, Bridgestone Arena. The game is at 7 o'clock. It's going to be fun. The Kraken are 1-2 overall and 1-1 on the road. As if anybody cares about standings right now, they are 6th in the Pacific with 2 points. 2 points, 2 big points, 2 points more than Nashville. They did lose their home opener to St. Louis 3-2. They then had to play back-to-back games over the weekend at Minnesota and Dallas. say that's fair or not, but that's the way things work. They beat the Wild 5-4 in Minnesota in a shootout, so very late, and then they lost 2-0 in Dallas. Grubauer, Seattle's primary goaltender, starting goaltender, first goaltender, whatever you want to call him, does have the 2 losses. And Decord got the win. Of course, he also got a 5-year, $25 million contract over the offseason. Good for him. Nice for a backup goalie. But hey, he won. So there you go. In the offseason, looking at their roster, and it looks like they were able to retain most of their team. I think when I was looking at Dallas and Detroit and Seattle, Nashville, to see what the roster changes were between last year and this year, Seattle had the least. They had done 2 people are not in the lineup tonight that were in the lineup last year when we faced them, which is true and not true. There were a couple of forwards that they had, Yamamoto and another one that played, although they weren't the primary forwards, but they played against the Preds a couple of times. But in general, they have the least number of changes to their lineup. Notably, they traded defenseman Brian Dumoulin to Anaheim for a 4th-round 2026 draft pick. So that, looking at who they don't have, he had a lot of minutes on average, over 15 a game for Seattle. The forwards that were in the roster had more like 7, which is, for forwards don't tend to get as many minutes as defensemen. But it didn't really look like the people that were not on the forwards that were on the roster were significant changes. And I think that they're just playing for the Firebirds, for their minor league team. I think that's part of the crew that comes up and down for them. So we'll probably see them again, but they did pick up center Chandler Stevenson, who is an unrestricted free agent with Vegas, and defenseman Brandon Montour, an unrestricted free agent from Florida. So overall, Seattle should be a stronger team this year than last year. They definitely made some nice changes, not as significant as Nashville, but they did make some nice changes to their roster, buttressing their forward and defense core. Last year, they started the season with 4 losses, including a loss to Nashville, before picking up their first win at home in Carolina. And this year, they're 1-2 with 1-1 on the road and 1 win at home. I'm sorry, 1 loss at home. And tonight's game is the last of a 3-game road trip for the Kraken, 1-1 so far. After tonight, they have a 5-game homestand. So that is the Seattle Kraken and where they are. Yes, we are playing the Kraken tonight. We have Kraken gear that we moved here from Seattle before the team started playing, but after they were announced. The gear is just so, it's so cool. It's hard not to wear it. It's our only chance to wear it. Last year, we would wear our Kraken gear and pull for Nashville, which is incredibly confusing. I think I'm going to be doing that again tonight. I'm not sure what my wife is going to be doing, if she's going to be pulling for the Kraken. I guess we'll just hope for a really good game. And I'll get to my game prediction a little bit later. But that's kind of where we're at there. The Preds stats were 0-2 and 0-1 at home. Tonight's game starts a 4-game homestand, so good for the Preds. They get to be at home for a little while. They play Seattle tonight, Edmonton Thursday, Detroit on Saturday, and then Boston next Tuesday. The Preds are seventh in the Central Division with 0 points. Colorado also has 0 points, but has lost 3 games. The Preds only lost 2, so they're ahead of them in the standings. Take that, Avalanche. Last season, the Preds were 1-2 in their first 3 games, winning at home and losing 2 away. They were 1-1 in their first 2 home games. They got to play Seattle first and then played Edmonton, kind of swapping that around slightly. Not really, but Seattle slightly. Seattle is the second home game. So if the Preds win tonight, the season will continue to look eerily like last year. Given that similarity, I am expecting the Preds to beat Seattle tonight. I gotta say it. Just as I wrote down here, just saying. I'm expecting them to lose to Edmonton. Now I'll do my Edmonton podcast tomorrow, Thursday, and maybe I'll have a different viewpoint when doing that. But just looking at how similar this season is to last year, at least starting out here. They lost to Dallas at home. They lost to Detroit in Detroit. They beat Seattle in Nashville. They lost to Edmonton early in Nashville. They beat Detroit at home in the second game. Now that game was later in the season, but I'm hoping for a little bit different. But hey, it's still early, right? But anyway, like I said, we'll get to those games later this week. And tonight's matchup tonight is the first game with Seattle. They will play 2 in Nashville and 1 in Seattle this year. Last year it was the other way around. The Preds won the 1 game in Nashville last year and split the 2 in Seattle, losing in November 2-4 and winning in March 4-1. The Preds are on a 2-game losing streak. So that's the matchup. The Preds at home. Preds stats at home. The Preds are 0-1-0 at home. Means they have lost every time they played at home this season. Aren't you getting tired of all that losing? Yes, one game does not a lot of statistics make. At least not from an overall standpoint. So anyhow, yes, they lost their last game at home against Dallas. In that game, they gave up 4 goals in the second, 2 goals sandwiched the one Preds Forsberg goal, and they got 2 goals in the third, winning 1, losing 1, tying 1. So far this season, there has been no scoring in the first in the Preds games. The Preds have scored 1 goal in the second to the opponent's 5, and both the Preds and the opponents have scored 2 each in the third. So, the Preds have not scored in the first this year. They have not gotten the first goal. They have not won a game. Neither Marchessault nor Stamkos have gotten a goal. Marchessault does have 2 assists. And Skjei, it's got to be wrong, hasn't gotten a point. Okay, so I am expecting almost all of that to change in tonight's game. I fully expect Skjei. God, that can't be right. Excuse me. I'm sorry about that. Can't be right. I mean, but I can't be saying that right. But I think he's going to get a point. Marchessault, I think, will get a goal. Stamkos, I think, will get a point. I'm not convinced that both of them will get a goal, but I think Marchessault is more likely to. course, maybe I've got that backwards. Since Marchessault has assists at this point, maybe Stamkos will get the goal. That would kind of, actually, that would make more sense. He hasn't gotten a point at all. Why not make it a goal? So I'm going to switch that. Stamkos is going to get the goal. Marchessault will get an assist. Skjei will get an assist. The Preds will score in the first. They will get the first goal, and they are going to win the game. And that is my prediction. And I expect that when I start doing the when I do the discovery or the research for the Edmonton game and this Thursday, that there will not be so many firsts, at least the ones I've run through, to be done again. So that's my prediction. Stamkos will get a goal. Can he get the first goal? Will Stamkos get the first goal? Stamkos getting the first goal in the first period. Can I say that? Can I say Stamkos getting... Well, if I'm wrong, what difference does it make, right? I'm not putting any money down on this. I hate to bet. I hate to bet because I hate to lose money. I hate losing money more than I like winning it. It just drives me nuts when I lose. Then overall, I think in my betting career, I think I'm ahead. But there's too much forgotten. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about my betting history. But okay. So I don't feel it. I don't feel Stamkos getting the first goal. But the Preds will get the first goal. They will get it in the first period. And Stamkos will get a goal. Skjei will get an assist. I guess Marchessault could get the empty netter. No, you know what? I think we're going to see a hat trick tonight. I think we're going to see a hat trick, and the third goal will be the empty net goal. How do you like that? How's that for a prediction? Okay, that's a bold start to the new seasons of Predator Proclivity, and I think in the end we'll all realize why I don't make predictions and why I don't bet. But anyway, that's tonight's game. Go Preds, Bridgestone Arena, 7:00. Nashville Predators versus the Seattle Kraken, the third game for the Predators and the fourth game for the Kraken. Welcome to the 2024-2025 NHL season. It's going to be a good one, guys. The Predators are loaded and ready to go. A little bit of a slow start, but it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And they are going to be hot this year. So it's going to be a fun season in Nashville Predator hockey. I'm Preston Proctor, and you've been listening to Predators Proclivity.